Since March 20th, 1779, the Marine Corps slogan has been, "We need a few good men." Well, the Marine Corps isn't the only group that needs a few good men. So does the church. Pastors are increasingly finding it harder to find substitutes when needed. I myself have been forced to preach sick more than one time because I couldn't find any trustworthy men to come and take my place. Now, I'm sure part of the problem is my ignorance of available men, but I'm not the only pastor wrestling with this problem, and the problem is far worse for churches with no pastor, and there are many of them. Now, the big churches, they don't have this problem. They ask for resumes. Such a thing makes me cringe, as though the church is some kind of business, and have a bevy of men applying, in my opinion, to get the big salary and notoriety in many cases. The small, fundamental, genuinely Bible-believing church, though, has a great struggle finding men willing to serve as a working pastor on a small salary or no salary at all. We have a dearth of young men willing to answer the call to preach today. Now, no man can call himself, he must be called of God. You don't just wake up one day and decide you're going to be a preacher, like you would decide to go into sales or plumbing or aviation. But young men, and only young men, ought to pray and ask God to give them their life's calling, including preaching, if that is God's will. God does not call women to preach. If a woman says she's called, I say, maybe she got called by Satan or by an evil spirit of rebellion, but she was not called by the Holy Ghost. I know God is able, and He has called men to rise to the occasion that was needed since Adam's fall. But I honestly worry that when I'm gone, there will be no one willing to answer the call and replace me, and that old-fashioned, Holy Ghost anointed, fiery preacher will disappear from the local church. Time was also that if the pastor needed a break, there were several other preachers in the church who would step up and fill the pulpit. Now most pastors carry the burden alone, or a lot of the time have to rely on a teacher to take a service, if even available, rather than a preacher. Don't misunderstand me. I appreciate the teachers, and there are times to use them, but there is a great difference between teaching a lesson and preaching an inspiring, sin-killing message. Of course, today, with so many men teaching, calling it preaching, most lay members don't know the difference. In my opinion, in a lot of cases, we've ordained some of our best Sunday school teachers. We need more screaming, slobbering, sin-hating, Holy Ghost anointed, willing to preach at the drop of a hat and drop it himself if he has to. Notes or no notes, bold preachers. We, the church, need to pray that God raise up more young men to fill these pulpits, whipping them into it if necessary, as He did in my case.